I put this little graphic together, and I looked at the typical things. Now, this is for investors in an early stage company, and I would hope that management would kind of be aligned, right? Now, of course, if you're investing in a large public company, you're going to have different types of risk that you're concerned about. But, you know, it's basic stuff like, you know, market adoption risk, to use the famous phrase from probably the most famous venture capitalist, John Doerr, you know, like, will the dog eat the dog food? You know, like, will customers buy this thing? Or market size risk. You know, you can get to 30 million, but can you get to 200 million? Well, can you get over that, right? There are lots of risks, and I'm just making the point that, you know, creative risk ought to be on that list, and I'm putting it there. So tell everybody, right? Creative risk. I mean, the way I define it is just the ability for a company to handle creativity if they need to. Like, if they're, you know, competitive risk is a risk. You know, there are different types. Do you have one large competitor? Like, you know, I work with a lot of software companies, and they're all often afraid of Microsoft or Google, right? Do you have one large competitor? Or do you have 100 little teeny competitors, so like no one gets noticed, and it's just a muddy mess? I mean, there are different types of competitive risk, but the ability to take creative risk is an antidote often. And the reason I put it here, people are afraid. I mean, I've heard this a lot of times from CEOs. If we try something outrageous, are we going to look stupid? I mean, I've literally heard that question. And yes, you might, right? It might fail. But it's not any different from these other types of risks. And yet people look at it differently because there's kind of a, we're trained socially to be sort of more careful when it comes to expression. I think that's what it is, right? And so I will be honest, I'm sort of beginning a theory here, and I'd love any feedback from people. But I believe this is really important, and I believe that it makes sense to think about this and talk about it and try to bring creativity more into the minds of investors and more into the minds of senior managers. Obviously, if you're, you know, in certain companies, it's just built in, but in other companies, it's not, and people are afraid of it. So I would look at it like any other risk. You know, protect yourself, hedge yourself, and get on down the road.